Blog Talk Radio.
Atomic batteries to power. Turbines to speed.
Here, ready to move out.
What gives you the right? What's the difference between you and me?
I'm not wearing hockey pads. It's not who I am underneath, but what I do that defines me.
Bruce?
I'm Batman. Nice coat.
I never said thank you.
And you'll never have to.
I'm going to show the people of Gotham their city doesn't belong to the criminals and the corrupt. People need dramatic examples to shake them out of apathy, and I can't do that as Bruce Wayne. As a man, I'm flesh and blood. I can be ignored, I can be destroyed, but as a symbol, I can be incorruptible. I can be everlasting.
What symbol?
Something elemental, something terrifying.
I killed those people. That's what I can be.
No, you can't. You're not.
I'm whatever Gotham needs me to be. Call it in.
And the people know the hero who saved them.
A hero can be anyone, even a man doing something as simple and reassuring as putting a coat around a young boy's shoulders. They'll let him know the world hadn't ended.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome to Sunday Night Dead, part of the Dead Air Paranormal Radio family here on Blog Talk Radio. This is Tracy Todd from Emerald Coast Paranormal Concepts here in Panama City, Florida, home of the Walking Drunk. I want to thank all of you for joining me this evening. Tonight, hosting on with me is the man that lives in Fort Worth, Texas, and has the inherent ability to talk to armadillos. We've always wondered what's on Mike's mind. Please welcome to the show, Mr. Mike.
Too many nights I've laid awake, wondering what is on Mike's mind. I've tossed and turned and crashed and burned, imagining what I'd find. So I'll just sit here and drink my beer, maybe rub one out tonight, 'cause I can hardly wait to find out just what is on Mike's mind. He can hardly wait to find out just what is on Mike's mind.
Well, everybody, Boler here. Joining Tracy tonight is Matthew Slozer is missing somewhere in the Indian Ocean this evening. We have planes out looking for him.
along with the Marines, and we'll be going to him soon. But everybody, welcome. It's Sunday Night Dead. Been here before with Matt. I'm going to be doing this tonight with Tracy Todd, who will be joining me back here shortly, along with Mr. George Lopez, who is my partner on Monday nights. If you've never listened to us, on Monday nights, give us a listen. Primetime Paranormal. We fire up every Monday at 9 Eastern, 8 Central, and talk about a little bit of everything. We're paranormal based, but anything, current events, whatever's going on with George and myself, we usually try to go over. But Tracy, I see that you're back in the studio here with me live. And, man, I'm glad to be here on Sunday Night Dead. Looking forward to doing this show. I know you've got some nice guests coming in to join us, and I think we're going to talk about this missing airplane, Flight 370, Malaysia, Flight 370, that apparently has fallen off the face of the globe. George and I had Ben Hansen on the first Monday on primetime, as I just mentioned to everybody, right after the plane went missing, and by now we had no idea the wreckage, or we wouldn't have some kind of a crisis situation with a terrorist, or the plane had been kidnapped along with the hostages. And we still don't know, Tracy. We still to this day don't know. And I jokingly said to Mr. Hansen, I said, at one point, does somebody with the government, seeing he's a former FBI agent, the person that is in charge of aliens and UFOs, that their desk doesn't begin to receive memos saying, we're not coming to you for a serious answer yet, but your thoughts on this. And as he said, no, that does actually happen, whether certain people take into consideration that or not. And like I said that half-heartedly, joking but serious, and got a fairly serious response from Mr. Hansen. So at this point, I wish CNN would have a little more coverage on this so we weren't so in the dark, and maybe some breaking news occasionally on this situation. But Tracy, your thoughts on it?
Well, I mean, CNN itself, out of all of the news networks, is actually talking most about it. I turned it on Fox News this morning and throughout the day, and they were talking about everything other than the missing plane. But what I find curious about CNN, they are also the only ones that are also looking at it on the possible paranormal side. They had a psychic on there the other day. The guy from whoever host or made up the show Naked and Afraid,
right.
He was on there on his story about it, about survival and whatnot. So they're the only network that's possibly looking at it other than a terrorist act or something of that nature.
Well, and I said that half-heartedly. The great Bill Maher had tweeted that several days ago about he wished CNN would get on this plane thing and we could get a little more coverage on it. I think they've been 24/7, or as one friend of mine put, 25/8 on coverage with this plane thing. But you bring up a great point. Where are the psychics on this? We have so many psychics in the community. I'm always on the fence on these psychics and their ability. I don't know. I thought about it. I know George Lopez, the founder of Dead Air, and my partner on Monday, that a lot of people would disagree, but if we'd had more time to plan this show, and maybe if we continue on with another conversation, I know me and him are not quite sure we're going to do a show on Haunted Hill House, which is the house, Tracy, across the street from the Baker Hotel. Phil Kirchhoff, the owner, is going to be joining us, and Dwayne Favors, along with hopefully some other groups that have been out there to investigate it like we did and talking about that. But if we have some more time, maybe a spirit box session, that if the plane did crash and we did have victims, could they be trying to communicate, and could we be the first ones that would openly say, okay, if you perished in this crash and would like to get a word out to a loved one, maybe George could run one of the famous spirit box sessions that he does. Or, as you said, maybe the psychics could chime in on what's going on these days, because I just haven't heard anything.
Well, yeah, that'd be great. I think I'd love to hear George get out there and do his thing with that. I guess we'd have to get a list of people that were on the plane so we can compare. But that'd be awesome. But anyway, let's get Mosey in here, and let me introduce two of the three guests that we have coming on tonight. The first one is a good friend of mine, sure a gentleman at heart. Excuse me. He hails from Naperville, Illinois. He is the owner of WHPR Digital Broadcasting and radio personality on Haunted Voices Radio, and is known for being the king of disco, Mr. Todd Bates. Hey, Todd, how are you?
Hey, how you doing, guys? Great to be here. Thanks for having me on.
Thanks for joining, Todd.
And our other guest that is with him, our third guest and the best looking of all of us, is Todd's dancing partner and best friend. She is also known and has her own radio show called The Gang of Girls on WHPR. Please welcome Miss Auriel Grace from Naperville, Illinois.
Hey, how you doing tonight, guys?
We are good.
And I'd also like to say that I'm psychic.
Andy. No. Nobody saw that coming.
So, just in case you have any questions, I don't know, maybe I could get you some answers.
Well, okay, the big one is, where is it?
What I get is that it was a plan, and the people that are on it, I keep hearing that they're living. And today, Todd and I were out grocery shopping, and I saw pictures of the missing people. And when I see pictures of people that are alive, the pictures are vibrant, they're beautiful. When I see pictures of people that have passed away, they're kind of faded. And all of these people were alive.
Well, this is Mike, and real quick, does that include your driver's license picture?
Yes, that includes your driver's license picture. Cutie pie.
That's great.
So that's my thing on it. I really haven't looked into it, and I really haven't read anything about it or anything. I try to stay out of the news. So, but Todd has some ideas too. So.
Well, the idea behind this missing flight, that's what's crazy. I realize it's a huge plane. It's also a huge sky. And in my opinion, as much as I hate saying this sounds like a huge publicity stunt. If it was a terrorist act, there'd be some kind of ransom or demands by now. If it did crash into the ocean, pretty much anywhere, there'd be some sign of debris. There'd be witnesses, things of that nature. My guess is the thing is sitting inside of a hangar somewhere, or something paranormal did happen. It's been known to happen in the past. World War I, World War II, Bermuda Triangle. These things, ships, planes, they just kind of disappear into some void. But what's crazy is the media attention. You have certain right, Republican-type channels concentrating on the plane missing. Your liberals, not so much. It's one of those, and I think you guys know as well as everybody else, the government does cover up a few things. I mean, is this some massive conspiracy? I'm not sure. But I think we all know the media is, we'll say, influenced by the government and how much they pay them to say this and say that. Things are just cleaned up. But there's just not enough evidence to pin anything down. And it could be distraction. They could be using this massive disappearance, this huge phenomenon, to take our attention away from something else that's either happening or going to happen real soon. So there's a lot of different theories out there you can put into it.
And you're right, Todd. And one of the things I want to get into real quick is that no matter what happens these days, and we can talk about the different conspiracies of, the government's large corporations, sticking their hand in this kind of control. Disaster porn sells commercials. Even though I'm mostly a CNN watcher because I think of the three that are the most neutral, even though I don't think they're completely neutral, that they are going around the clock with this, not because that's what they choose to do. It's because the owners of the station, it's because this is big money for them. They've doubled up, I'm sure, with their advertisers, and, there's a reason it's a billion-dollar cable news industry out there that Ted Turner created back in the day. This is not exactly what he had in mind, from what I understand. No. But anytime we have anything like this, and the longer this goes, the better they are. If you went and spoke to the accountants at CNN, if you want them to find the plane, you'll have one last great day on this, and other than that, then you'll just have a few reports and a few funerals. No, they'd like to see this possibly go another 2 weeks if they could.
Right. You're right. And if you don't mind me interrupting, I'm going to throw in another conspiracy theory that happened, Sandy Hook. Okay, what kind of media coverage did that get? It got a few spurts, great coverage for a while, then all of a sudden, it was forgotten about. Where's all the bodies? Where's the huge funeral? Where's all of this? Why can't they explain the same people going in and out of the doors in a loop? Why can't they explain these things? It's almost as if they're using that to steer our attention elsewhere from something bigger that's happening. I mean, it's one plane. I realize there's a couple hundred people on there, but does the government not have employees? Could they not set something like this up? There's fictitious people. There's fictitious planes. They fly into Area 51 all the time. They're decoy planes. They go in there, people monitor them, so something else can either come in or get away. It's almost like it's a distraction.
Right. Well, hold on a minute, fellas and ladies. Our other guest has called in. He is my friend from Windsor, Canada, Mr. Dan Miisur. Hello, Dan.
Oh, hello, everybody. Sorry for the late arrival here. I had some technical difficulties with my planned way of calling in, but all good now. Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
So you're on all this real quick, Dan.
I've heard quite a few things, and I think to myself that there's just so much information in this day and age that's getting out there so quickly, whether or not it's true information, false information. I think there's just so much out there that it's just opened up this whole can of worms with this situation here where you can kind of almost go in any direction that you want to from some of the things that have been heard. But the thing that's throwing me off the most is the change of direction of the plane after, losing contact and that kind of thing. It just, some of the theories don't seem like they would be accurate as far as, the crew passing out and, the autopilot, and yet it changed direction afterwards from the original course that was planned. That was the last course. I have some thoughts of my own, and I haven't really heard anybody mention much of this kind of thing, but, maybe it's more of a cover-up of an accident that happened that they don't want people to know about. For instance, maybe it was shot down accidentally, that kind of thing. I'm not sure what you guys have touched on so far. And then one of the other things, and I had just seen this from one source, and I'm not sure how reliable this source was, but I don't know if you guys have heard about this, but there was mention of these 4 gentlemen who were on board that were inventors and patent makers. And they had said that the most interesting thing about it was the patent and the thing that they were working on would be something that could make something like that plane completely disappear, as in become invisible. Now, I'm not sure about the accuracy of any sources for that story there. It seemed more of a conspiracy theory kind of deal. But it just seemed like there's an odd group of passengers on that plane in my mind as well, the 20 employees from China.
A lot of key people.
Yeah, exactly.
A lot of key people are on that plane.
why were all these different groups there?
Yeah. Maybe that's the government's way of getting them out to employ them elsewhere or to do something. I mean, it's far-fetched.
Dan, Mike Boler, I normally do Mondays with Lopez, Primetime Paranormal, joining Tracy tonight with Matt being out. And you're on to something. I think that's one of the top theories that I kind of subscribe to or listen to quite a bit on, is they did have some top minds on there. And logically, if you look at everything they've got and what they're discussing tonight, as they begin to put it's like this massive 1,000-piece jigsaw puzzle that they get a piece per day. You know, which at this rate will take us 3 years to figure out what happened here. But no, if you know, they're saying that the plane got down to 12,000 feet after it made that 2-minute turn today, which sounds like this was not a disaster. You know, the way this unfolded, that there's just too many things that probably should have happened if it was. We can't 100% count that out at this point. But if they landed this plane, the interesting thing to us is this probably, maybe not the first time in history, but the first time that I can recall, where if this is some type of a kidnapping, terrorist, or whatever, they still do not want to go public with this, that they've hidden the plane, they've got the plane where they want it, they've landed the plane. Whether it be the plane they actually want, which is valued at around $50 million, my understanding, on the black market. But some of the mines that they have here, could they have taken them, kidnapped them, and what are they doing with them? Forcing them, you know, if they got anywhere close to Iran, if they got as far as they could and landed. You know, some of the theories there of taking some of these mines from IBM and some of our top scientists, they said that were on this plane, that they have kidnapped and are forcing them for information at this point.
No, I've heard one thing that ties right in with that, and that being basically an operating system that the Chinese have designed that's absolutely unhackable. There's no possible way for anybody to hack this system. The only way in is through somebody who knows. And those people who are on that plane that has now disappeared are the people who are in the know of this Chinese system. So there's the thought that this may be related to that as well. It's just, yeah, there's a lot of things out there that just really scream something else is going on here. And then something that popped into my mind today, and I'm sure we'll touch on this quite a bit talking about this situation, is getting into the quantum physics idea of things such as a wormhole and that kind of thing. Mm-hmm. There was just recently, you know, a large discovery in that kind of thing itself. Was this some sort of testing involved dealing with that kind of thing? I'm not sure. It just seems like a whole lot of interesting things that just, like you said, a puzzle piece that's yet to be figured out. If it was a disaster of some sort, there's got to be some key witness, some leftover debris of some kind. Any of the past ones, they've found basically something or some sort of misinformation in the first place. There's not that many that are totally unexplainable, and this one is completely unexplainable as of now.
Tracy, well, let me say this real quick, and I'll let you take it, Tracy. I was curious, and we didn't get this started right off the bat. Now that Todd, Auriel, and Dan are in here with us, and anybody in chat or listening in tonight, just in chat or calling at 646-929-2384, let us know. I think there's three possibilities, Tracy, that either there was a crash, a fire, something happened, you know, with the plane where there was a disaster, the pilot himself, or he was forced in the plane, and along with the passengers, have been taken somewhere undisclosed that they have not discovered yet, so that's basically an abduction of sort where they've kidnapped the passengers and possibly pilots, someone on board, or, as Dan just mentioned, do we begin to throw things in there such as alien abduction, wormholes, portals, and things similar to what the Devil's Triangle, the Bermuda Triangle down there off of Florida where George Lopez is? These things, which of the three things? And I'll start out by saying right now, my best guess or estimate of the news, the limited amount of news that I've watched, along with what I've read, I would say at this point, I don't think the plane crashed. And if I had to hedge a bet one way or the other, I'm going to go with the plane has been stolen or taken forcibly from the pilots and taken somewhere and landed, and that currently the passengers, if they're still alive, have all been abducted and being held hostage. Tracy, I'd like to see what everybody else thinks and get your opinion too.
Well, my opinion from day one, Mike, has been that I actually think that something happened on the plane. I don't quite know what, but because this happened, whether it be a fire or something just went out, or whatever the case may be, I think the plane actually took over, changed course, and I do believe myself that it is, and I hate to say it, but it's sitting on the bottom of the Indian Ocean somewhere. My only issue with all this is, like Dan was saying, is there was a lot of important people on this plane. And because of those important people, I believe that a government, I'm not sure which one, because when you look at the overall picture, a lot of the, the major eight, I guess, all have some sort of stake with individuals that were on that plane. So who really knows, but my gut feeling is that it is sitting on the bottom of the Indian Ocean right now. But going back to that psychic on CNN, she saw, doing her psychic thing, that the plane actually landed in the jungle and everybody was alive.
Wow. So, okay. So Tracy thinks crash. I'm thinking that the plane was actually confiscated, taken, whether the pilot's in on it or not, which has been one of the conspiracies that's been thrown out there. Auriel, you first. What's your thoughts?
Well, I don't feel like when I focus on the plane, I don't feel fear. I don't feel like anyone was afraid, and I feel like there was a plan. I'm not really sure if I wouldn't call it like a conspiracy. I do think that it landed. I think that there was a place that they wanted to land it, so it was a plan. Whether it's something to direct us, to like make us focus on something that happened, like a mystery or whatever of the populace, it could be that. It could be that these people, maybe they need to become different people. Who knows? But the one thing that I do know is when I focus on the people there and I focus on that plane is intact. It's somewhere. It landed, and the people are there. They're not afraid. And the pictures that I saw of whoever those people were on the front page of the magazine today, they're all alive. They're not dead. And the feeling that I got from looking at the pictures was that there was no fear there. Because usually looking at a picture, I can tell, like, if there's fear, where the person is, if they're alive or dead, who's holding them, all the other, like, kind of things that go with it. And with those pictures, I didn't feel despair or sadness or anything like that at all. So, again, it could be just that maybe the governments want to distract us on something, So what's coming up? What's happened? What's happened all around the world besides the airplane going down? That would be my question.
So, Auriel, you think it could be a diversion?
I do. I think that it's a diversion, and I also think that, it was planned. I don't think that it was. I don't think it was anything that hurt anybody. Maybe these specific people that were on the plane needed to be somebody else. People disappear all the time.
Wow, Tracy. So that's basically she's agreeing with me with a twist that this was a planned situation that changed the plane's route, whether it be the pilot that was in on this or others on board that basically hijacked the plane.
And I don't feel like I don't feel like the pilots were forced.
More like a witness protection program type thing, a relocation for a new life type deal, right?
Oh.
Maybe, yeah.
Interesting.
Well, they're all on Fantasy Island.
Wouldn't that be fun?
One of the things that, was also debated as, something that could have happened was just a simple loss of cabin pressure to cause everybody to pass out. And this has happened in the past. In Greece, it happened. There was a plane. Flight was scheduled to be about an hour and a half. As it was taking off, the cabin pressure decreased. Everybody passed out, and it was on autopilot. So basically, it circled the airport, and they knew something was wrong, couldn't communicate with them, so they sent some fighter planes up, and they could actually see that the pilot was, passed out in front of the cockpit there. So, that was a thought there, but then it always comes back into mind about those changes of direction in the plane, and so, could it be something like Tracy said, maybe something else, a fire that could have caused the circuitry to go haywire, and that's why there was a change in direction? That's a possibility. My initial thought is more along the lines of the, making the plane disappear, as in hijacking it. I don't know why, but that was my initial thought, was that's what happened. Everybody's alive. Nobody's dead. It's going to be landed somewhere, and it's going to be just one big shock when they finally come out and say, this is what we want, kind of deal. So I kind of think, that route a little bit more, depending on what comes out as actual fact. That's the other thing. It seems like there's a lot of cover-up going on. There's a strange relationship between Malaysia and China. Even just the way that they see each other. I kind of think like they would almost do anything for China if they were bullied enough into it. So, who knows what this was all about.
Interesting. And Dan, I guess one of the things that based my answer on, which is sounding like you said a little bit when you started there, is the things that they're saying they've documented, if we can believe them, the plane took this 2-minute turn, this hard left turn, which they say it took about 2 minutes to do it like that, 12 minutes before the last transmission of the audio, that you now have military radar picking it up almost an hour afterwards, flying at 12,000 feet and then also going back up, unless the autopilot, and they had a disaster where everybody was incapacitated and it's crashed into the ocean, which is kind of where Tracy's at on this. There's just so many things that don't make sense along that, which leads a lot of us to believe that this was a planned attempt at stealing the plane. So you're the final one on this, and then I think we'll get George in on this and see what his thoughts are. Where do you think the plane is?
Personally, myself?
Yes.
That's the one thing I just haven't been able to satisfy myself with, would be who would be behind this ultimately, who would stand to gain from it, and what would they want in the long run. Obviously, it can't be just, a matter of something monetary, money, that kind of thing. It's got to be more, I think, a trade for trade, person for person kind of deal. So, who important out there is currently incarcerated by the military or government somewhere in the world that, somebody really wants.
Motive behind everything, isn't there?
I'm sorry?
There's a motive behind everything. I always say if you find a motive,
right,
you'll normally have a straight line to the culprit there.
It's just so hard to find a motive behind right now at this time. The distraction idea, that sounds great depending on what they plan on doing with, for instance, the Russian invasion. Is there going to be something that's going to go on with that, and or is there something currently going on with that nobody knows about yet because of this current distraction? I mean, these theories are all pretty good.
But when you come to the distraction part of it, distraction for who? Would it be a distraction for us as a country, or would it be a distraction for China as a country?
I think it's a distraction from the world. I think that there's going to be something that's done excessively as far as, the United Nations may not agree with whatever is going to happen or is happening. And the distraction is to keep people from seeing that. I don't think that, there's got to be something that's big enough that they would cause that kind of a distraction.
Somebody, we're getting some really bad feedback there if you're next to your computer.
Okay, is that better?
Yeah, much better. Thank you so much there. And,
okay,
and Todd, you want to jump in on this?
Yeah, I mean, that's my take on it. This is a distraction. Period. I don't think it crashed. I don't think anyone's injured. I think they got what they needed out of it. Those people are obviously high dollar, very intelligent. As far as a left turn or missed turns or loss of cabin pressure, all these things are computer driven on an airplane. One computer tells another computer what that plane's doing. The transponder tells it where it's at. You disconnect that, the plane literally disappears. There's thousands upon thousands of planes in the sky, a lot of air traffic. You look up, you go to a high enough altitude, you can't see them. So they have enough time to duck and cover, land somewhere, put yourself in a hangar, take these super intelligent people somewhere. If they're holding them hostage, they're either holding them for their intelligence, no ransom, no dollar value on these people. They want them for their intelligence. And I just think it's a way to, not necessarily our government, but multiple governments are pulling this stunt to distract us from something. You have a lot of mini Cold Wars going on. You have, Ukraine, you have North Korea. The whole world's kind of cranky. We're on the verge of another world war. I mean, it's a matter of time. People just, they're getting too trigger happy, getting too upset. They're too insecure. So a stunt like this takes your average person, which the media takes and instills fear in those people, which they're killing two birds with one stone. Number one, they're keeping us focused on one situation, but at the same time, they're selling an ungodly amount of advertising by keeping people in their seats, staring at their televisions, listening to their radio. So you're getting all of that. You're getting the complete distraction. I think this plane is sitting somewhere. Everyone's safe. I'm not saying it was a conspiracy theory, everybody was involved. All those people could have been used as patsies. They're just packed in there. Random people, they put them in there, got them off to a safe location, saying, you're going to stay here until we tell you to say something otherwise. You have no communication, blah, 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 blah. You've officially disappeared. It's one of those things where 3 months from now, we're going to completely forget about this, and the truth will come out. What are we going to say then? Oh, okay, that's what happened. And we're moving on to the next disaster.
Right. Well, going back to your talking about the computers on the aircraft, I was talking to a Delta pilot. They stay at our hotel on their layovers, and he was supposed to be coming on the show tonight, so he still may. But he was talking about the redundancies on these aircraft. Mm-hmm. On certain aircraft, if you turn them the radar and stuff like that off, if you turn them off, redundancy computers take over. Now, he was saying that once they turn the transponders off, there's a possibility that another computer on the aircraft took over that was already preloaded with a flight plan, causing the turns and dips and so on and so forth.
Right, that makes sense.
If you don't mind me to jump in here, interestingly enough, somebody proved that they could make an app for an Android phone that would actually allow them to take over a plane and control it.
That's a scary thought.
Yeah, so I mean, they obviously had to revamp security after this was brought up by the developer.
Slightly.
But it just goes to show that there's possibilities and ways to get into that kind of thing, like Tracy's saying. It is definitely possible that way. Some of the stuff that is used for tracking that is not used in the way that we think of, but is more used for maintenance and that kind of thing, so it's not something that's looked at right away. So, they wouldn't even get that information usually until a later point in time. So if it was a hijack and that kind of thing, I don't know if they would know to get every single piece that's on there and disable it, and if there wasn't some sort of backup. But the other thing that I found when I was researching some of this that just scared the heck out of me is the number of spots where they don't have communication, either radar or radio or both. And mostly nothing has GPS right now tracking, and they say that the reason why is because of the cost to overhaul everything, the billions and billions of dollars that it would cost. Right. They say because it has to be done properly, it has to be foolproof. You can't compare it to a cell phone, because if a cell phone GPS doesn't work 1 in 100 times. It's a cell phone. Who cares? But if 1 in 100 plane, loses GPS and ends up having a problem out of it. But I still don't understand why that's not being used, in conjunction, even if it's not the $500 billion system, that it would cost to do the entire United States.
Well, that's the thing. You're talking about planes. This country, 9/11, that changed the airline industry tremendously. There's backups on there that probably the pilots don't know about. The airline probably doesn't even know about these things. These
exactly.
things, it's so crazy. And you have a country, Malaysia, all these other overseas countries, they don't have these as much a terrorism problem, so they probably don't have these kinds of systems on there. That's the thing. Maybe this was some kind of special plane. I have no idea, but it just doesn't make sense. If it would have crashed, especially by now, there would have been some kind of debris, some kind of witness. Somebody would have came forward. Something would have happened. It's just, it literally vanished. And that's the odd part. That's what tells me there's no loss of life that we know of, because there's no signs. There's no signs of debris. There's no signs of a crash. And maybe these twists, turns, loss of cabin pressure, maybe these are signals that some of these people that were on that plane knew how to do, or this could have been something pre-planned. They did that, send those out to make the people think, okay, it did crash. And that's why we're sitting here having this conversation now, which is what they want us to do, is keep our minds on this, because something else is either happening or going to. That's the only thing that makes sense to me.
You're exactly right. I want to add one more voice to the conversation. Like I had mentioned earlier, my partner on Monday nights, George Lopez, who's the founder of Dead Air Paranormal Radio. But, Tracy, he kind of told me his theory back last week. I don't know if he's changed or not, but I'll share his theory with everybody real quick here, and then we'll bring him on.
Enough is enough! I have had it with these motherfucking snakes on this motherfucking plane! Everybody strap in! I'm about to open some fucking windows.
Everybody, George Lopez from Monday night and Tuesday night here on Dead Air Paranormal Radio. Welcome, George.
And once that window was open, the rest is history. I'm still trying to figure this one thing out, though, guys. That I know we're talking about a missing plane and such, but there's this one guy from Canada that keeps talking about a boat.
What?
Every time he's talking a boat. I'm like, what is he talking about for? I lived in Toronto for a year and a half. That's why I could tease you. Horton Donuts, man, nothing better.
Oh, that is just too much. Oh, yeah. I haven't said A too much yet, but I'm sure it'll sneak out a few times.
Listen, there are a lot of theories and hypotheses that are being thrown out there right now, and the bottom line of it is that this is, to date, one of the greatest mysteries, and right now, for this century, of this century, the greatest mystery so far, trying to figure out how this was pulled off. And I know one of the gentlemen mentioned 9/11, and I can pretty much guarantee you that if you talk to anybody on the streets and said, would there be a possibility for terrorists to hijack 4 separate planes in one day in the span of about 3 hours and be able to pull off the greatest terrorist attack of all time, crashing into both of the towers in New York City, into the Pentagon, and wherever the destination was for the flight that crashed in Pennsylvania, that some speculate to be the White House or the Capitol, that most people would have said that's an impossibility. There's no way, between the pilots being there, redundant systems, there's no way that they're going to be able to pull this off, and look what they did. So this, as much as it seems like an amazing Vegas vanishing act, something happened here that was done, that was planned well. I can't go along with the theory that it's because of the criteria or the passengers that were on board, that these people were important. Logistically, trying to figure out that they were all going to make it to this flight, which flight it was going to be, scheduling the hijacking on top of that. I think it's just a circumstance that just these people, their identities were brought forth, and it just seemed amazing that their criteria and their expertise and what they delved into just happened to be on this flight. My personal opinion to this, I think honestly, is if this was indeed a hijacking, they are all dead. That this particular flight, the reason why it was captured is to be used in the same way of 9/11, but possibly even with a nuclear or dirty bomb, where they can explode it over a major city area or crash it into a building and just completely saturate the air with radiation. Very much of a possibility of that happening.
Right.
And waiting, as you said, very patiently, very patiently, when they went from 1993 to 2011, 2 attempts on the World Trade Centers. They failed in 93. They succeeded in 2001. The possibility of them being patient enough to let this plane sit in a hangar somewhere for the next 5 years till the next attack, that to me is extreme discipline and a very, very dangerous foe.
That is what this world has come to. And, George, you almost make it sound kind of sci-fi, where you have these phantom lasers that vaporize things in midair. These things are tested all the time. We just don't know about it. Do we have this kind of, and that's where, I believe your name's Doug, correct?
Dan?
Dan? Yeah.
Yep.
Talking about the missile. It could have been a misfire, an accident, a cover-up, that kind of thing. And there's just so many theories with this, and that's what amazes me about this plane. One plane causing all these different disruptions. It's insane. It's insane. It makes no sense. There's no evidence of it disappearing. The Bermuda Triangle effect comes in where it just vanishes. That was later to be proven. Methane gas bubbles coming up from the sea. There's always going to be something to counteract it. And
yeah, but with the exception of the simulator in Mississauga, Ontario, they've not done any reenactments. They've not sent another plane up to try to go through the entire same format and direction of what had happened to see whether or not, first of all, the plane could sustain all those turns and dips that much.
Right.
I don't know if they dismissed the elevation count, where there was, at one point in time, speculation that the plane had ascended to 45,000 feet, which after about 15 minutes would render the passengers unconscious and eventually kill them through asphyxiation. The masks that drop down only have a certain time limit on that oxygen. The only ones that have sustained oxygen are the ones that are in the cockpit. So if the 2 men with the fake passports rushed in, took over the cockpit, or there was a conspirator in either the pilot or the co-pilot, they just had to eliminate one man, but they had the oxygen masks up front to sustain their oxygen while everyone else was killed, and then drop down to the 12,000-foot mark to wherever they flew to. Again, all speculation out there, but the idea of the Bermuda Triangle or a black hole opening up or a vortex, the final countdown where Kirk Douglas in the aircraft carrier kind of thing is, it makes for great movies, but it's still usually just mankind, somebody who's been devious and clever enough to think about this a long, long time and plan it out.
Very clever. Or someone screwed up royally, and they're covering it up very, very well. I mean, it's insane. And I have to take off, and I want to thank everybody. This is just, I'm sorry I had to leave so early. It was a fantastic conversation. You guys just, my goodness, a great eye-opener. So thank you all very, very much for having me on here tonight. Very much.
Oh, thank you, Todd, for coming on, buddy.
Absolutely. Good luck.
All right. Thank you, sir. Have a good night.
You too.
All right. So one thing that I think, going back to what Tracy was saying about the accident, there was the talk from actually a Canadian gentleman who discussed something that could explain the change in altitude and that kind of thing, and that would be that if there was a fire on the plane, to bring the plane up to that altitude would, of course, drop the oxygen content in the air, which would, in essence, help extinguish the flames possibly. So he tried to explain it that way, but then once again it comes back to some of those other twists and turns that don't go along with the rest of that story. Though the one hard turn was supposedly, to land safely at a known location, and that no, person would know this who was hijacking a plane. And I thought to myself, this day and age, I think they're a little more knowledgeable if they were going to hijack, that they would know those things to make it seem that way.
Yeah, but you guys, when we were talking about, the plane actually landing somewhere and these guys doing this on purpose and taking it to a specific location, I have a real hard time with a plane that big just sitting somewhere now and nobody knows.
The other thing about it is the size runway that would be needed to actually land that plane. Any of the runways that are known about to be that size, obviously it's not turned up there. So this would have to be some massive, runway somewhere that's, hidden well, that's privately owned somewhere, I would think, or government owned that's, hiding it that well. But I just can't see that. I think we give the government a little too much credit sometimes. And I think that sometimes the cover-ups are more about mistakes being covered up. And in this situation, I'm kind of leaning more towards, final decision of what I think about it. I'm thinking more towards accident, possibly shot down, and that's why there's all these other theories. We've all known this has happened before in the past, too, where, planes have been in the wrong area. The other pilots know they're there. They attempt communication. Maybe something's wrong with the communication. They can't communicate, and they just take them out because they're worried about what they're going to end up doing with that plane. One of the situations, that happened in Iran, and I believe there were quite a number of people who were on board the jetliner that was shot down there. And then another similar situation that was always deemed as being, one of the mysterious plane disappearances, and, mysterious disappearances was Glenn Miller back in World War II times when he was leaving England. His pilot asked to lower their altitude and was denied, and that was their last communication. And then they never, heard from this plane again. But it came out later from one of the bomber pilots that was returning on a mission. As they were flying, they were in that lower altitude, a no-fly zone. They couldn't communicate with them, and they were just discharging everything as they did in that time when they were coming back. And this pilot actually seen, the wing get blown right off and the plane go down into the water. So, there's a possibility that somebody did this, and they're just, either not saying, hey, I shot it down, and now I know afterwards that's what it was.
Right. Well, when you speak of Iran, Iran's pretty much, they're under our scrutiny radar, or at least the United States anyway. They're under our radar very much so. And do you think if Iran was to shoot this aircraft down, that we wouldn't know?
I'm thinking this was more of whatever military was in the area once communication was lost with this plane, that there wasn't communication with the military, and that they were in the area, couldn't communicate with this plane, and assumed it was going to be some sort of a terrorist occurrence and ended up taking it down on accident. One of the things that when I was looking into a bit about Malaysia, there seems to be this separation between their government and their military. There's a very poor communication between the two. As well as there's a lack of technology there, and basically there's a lack of speed, a lack of effort being put into what they're doing. They just seem to be kind of lackadaisy about the way they go about their lives. So, they're taking their time doing it the way that they would do it when they're doing their, research into what's going on here. So I don't know if they're waiting for somebody else to come up with a bigger, hey, we found part of the plane, and then they're going to be like, yeah, we shot it down by accident, or if they're just kind of sitting waiting back and saying, hey, let's see where this goes.
Right. Well, let's talk about Malaysia, where the plane originated from, and I'd like to get all y'all's input on this. Do you think that Malaysia, the government of Malaysia, or the military of Malaysia, had something to do with this aircraft going missing?
No.
Who do you want to start with, Tracy?
Go ahead, Mike. Let's start with Mike and George, Dan, Auriel.
First of all, wasn't the president's daughter born there?
I'm sorry?
That's my bad attempt at humor there. The president's daughter.
I broke up.
I think they named her after the country of Malaysia, correct? My bad. My general take on that, everybody, is they are closely connected with China. I knew very little about them until this happened, and just in a couple of weeks, I found some articles that led me to different things that have caused me to kind of read up. And over in that part of the world, of that globe, that my logical take right off the bat, without putting any real substance into it, of why or where, was that when something like this goes wrong, they immediately go on the, oh my God, what did we do wrong? And you don't admit and you don't this, because it's just almost, we're much more relaxed in the United States at our own faults, even though somebody's always going to point a finger and blame because of insurance. Over there, insurance is not so much the big game as you lose face, your pride, that they were going to cover up, even though they didn't know what to cover up, is more where I kind of went with Malaysia and their government. They didn't know what was going wrong, but certainly let's cover it up in case it was it was a mechanical malfunction. We're going to look terrible here, and there's all these Chinese on the plane, which without China, we're in deep doo-doo here. That they will blame us for this, so let's be very cautious and very careful. Don't give out any information, even though it may help find the plane, until we're sure it doesn't indicate that we've made a major screw-up here in what we've done. And that was kind of my take on where their stance has been until we go further and further, and they're kind of slowly having to come out of that and admit to certain things until different government agencies and people that are now being involved have been able to get over there and talk to them. And maybe some of the cover-up is more there than anything of what the Malaysian officials allowed the rest of the globe to know right off the bat versus what they hid. And now that some people may know this, we may never know if they had just minor things or a lot of major things. We just don't know.
Right. George?
I mean, it's possible. Look, I could lose a sock between my washer and dryer and not know where the hell it went. That's a sock. So it's possible that there was some fallible human error that got involved with it, and it's always a possibility. All I keep thinking about is I just hope that the families from the flight who were still there and freaking out, losing their minds, don't watch CNN, because CNN's version and their work every single day, as Mike said, 25/8, that they're doing nonstop reports about this missing flight. It's like Homeland Security with Amber Alert and Orange Alert and Yellow Alert. They'll have them going left, right, up and down, wondering what the hell's going on. Just nobody really knows. So you can, for all intents and purposes, Tracy, point your finger in every direction because there is nothing that has been definitively shown yet. Nothing about it crashing into the ocean. There's no such debris, not even a floating seat cushion, which is what they're all supposed to do if we hit the water in the event of a crash landing in the ocean. Use your seat as a flotation device. It had to have broken apart on impact because it's like hitting concrete. So something should have come up and floated, and nothing has. Second thing, too, is if it lands anywhere with the amount of cell phone usage that is out there today, and by no way, shape, or form is Malaysia or China less than we are, if not more, with the technology that's out there, that nothing has been tweeted or Facebooked or blogged or messaged or just a simple phone call. Hey, back on that day, I saw and heard a plane flying about 5,000 feet above my house. Nothing anywhere. It's just disappeared right into my dryer, I'm telling you.
Auriel, your take?
Well, I'm Asian, and so I know about saving face, and I know about a little bit how they work. And if there was, and I don't agree with this, but if there was some kind of misfire, misfunction, something like that, Malaysia would not say anything until they had all of the facts, because China is very close to them. And, there are Chinese people on the plane, and they don't want China to get mad at them, because it's Malaysia and China. China's huge. And if you really think about it, China's huge, and there's areas of China that are not inhabited. And I just really think that, there were some people that needed to be different people. I don't think anyone is dead, and I really don't think that they're...
Auriel, you said that on 3 different occasions now, to be different people. What does that mean?
Well, it could mean a lot of things, but that's what I keep hearing, is that there are some people on that plane that needed to be different people. Like, what do they call it when they stick you in the government places you somewhere else? They transport you, they change your name, they change your identity, they change everything about you. Yeah, there were some people on the plane that, needed to change. They needed to change their identity, whether it was out of fear or whatever. But my feeling is that, slowly but surely there will be stories of, somebody making it home, or somebody, something happening. But it's not going to happen right away, and they did not crash in the ocean. I feel, and I can see it now, that plane flew. Whether they were, knocked unconscious or whatever, but the pilots knew where they were going. And the pilots also knew what they needed to do in order to get where they needed to go. It's not something that they're going to go and, I don't think there's going to be any hostages. I don't think there's any anger. I don't feel fear. I don't think it's a conspiracy. But I do think that there are people on that plane that needed to change their identities to be somebody else. And people do that all the time. Like, I help people find missing people. And sometimes when I see a picture and I see that they're alive and I feel like this person does not want to be found, I tell the family that. This person does not want to be found. And when people don't want to be found, you're not going to find them. This is a big, huge world. And, yeah, we got cell phones. Yeah, we've got all this technology and stuff, but we have other technology, too. And there are some people that, live on mountaintops, and they don't really give a flying you-know-what about the rest of the world. They just want to live in peace. Right?
I got you. Yeah.
You got it? Do you understand what I'm saying? Because, I'm not going to, I can't be specific here because, I really, really have not looked into this at all, but the things that I'm getting right now is I keep hearing that there are people on the plane that needed to change their identities, and so, maybe they
just tell us exactly where the plane is, please. Just tell us.
I think it did land. I think that I keep feeling like I keep feeling like it's either in China or near China. I feel like it's in a place where there are not that many people, if there are any at all.
And I think what she's kind of saying there, George, is we haven't discussed yet, is the pilot is the senior pilot for the Malaysian Airlines there that he deleted, and I haven't heard anything else. If anybody else has, correct me, something just recently off the equipment that he had, the flight simulator that he had purchased and set up at his own home, which, like I said, there's nothing really wrong with that. That just meant he was really into his job. Most pilots don't do that. They use the one that the airlines gives them for training, but he actually had one at home. So if he went into this that far, there's been some conspiracies mentioned about the co-pilot being in on him. Of course, they said they didn't ask to fly together on this, which they probably would have if they were in, or maybe they were and they just happened to wait till they got together and had the perfect timing here. And this was one of those that maybe he is the one seeking another identity and had worked out a deal with another foreign government to bring the plane to them, and this was all set up. So that could be where the new identity is coming from. It could be just one or two of the the captain and the co-pilot there. So
I think there's more than like that. I think there's more people than that need new identities. And if somebody is going to offer you like a pile of money and you can go anywhere you want in the whole world, what are you going to say if you're not going to hurt anybody?
I'm going to take the money.
That's right. You will take the money. Most people will take the money, and they will run, and they will go to wherever, they're happily ever after, whatever that may be. You know what I mean? So, like, if it's not going to hurt anybody, then why not?
What's the end-all, be-all, though, to it? I don't think this is a Disney pass to change your identity.
No, I don't think it's a Disney story. And
but
that's not
an
what
end
I'm saying. But what I am saying is that if somebody offered you, like a dump truck full of money and told you, hey, we need you to do this, it's not anything that's going to hurt anybody. We just need to create a distraction, and then we need to, like, disperse these people in different directions. Are you willing to help us? What would you do?
That's utter gullibility. That's gullibility. Someone's
yes, but
go,
some people...
Oh, don't worry about the plane. Don't worry that we have turbines. Don't worry. No. And all these people, they're going to have great lives. They're going to live on Fantasy Island along with you and your millions. But everybody's going to have a happy life. It's gullibility. The true aspect of it is that if this was done, it was done in malice, not out of the greater good of contributing and changing these people's lives for the better. There was an agenda here, and the agenda has yet to be completely fulfilled. If it didn't wind up at the bottom of the Indian Ocean, like someone else said on the line.
Yeah, but if everybody has an agenda. There's always an agenda. There's always something going on. There's always some kind of plan, some kind of strategy, some kind of something or another going on. But what if, and I'm handing you this situation, what if, like, that's what it was? What if these people needed to change their identities? It just happened that there were a bunch of other people on the plane, and they got what they needed. They got what they wanted.
I can throw a twist on that. It could be the whole operating system that was unhackable and not necessarily that they were forced into hiding because of the information they had, but maybe that was part of the agreement on developing this kind of thing was after this is done, you'll be given X amount of dollars, and then you will go into hiding, and this is how we're going to do it. And maybe they didn't tell them how they're going to do it until the very last second, and then this is how it's come about. I mean, if you wanted to entertain that notion, to me that sounds like a plausible way of that happening.
There's another situation that can, there's a lot of times the government, you think the government's, you guys come up with all these great conspiracies and stuff like that. You don't think the government does that every day?
Well, no, we want to talk about that. I'll talk about that. Here's my problem with that scenario is the fact that they do. They look at scenarios, but then they look at which scenarios benefit them. 9/11 had the opportunity to be stopped. 9/11, the reports had been coming out months and months and months in advance. Why didn't they? And why did everybody go? Oh, we didn't see any. We didn't. Was because it was the perfect opportunity to go into Iraq. It was a perfect
let it happen, for sure.
It was a treasonous act by American people. That's what the Twin Towers was, and it was done for greed.
But in the aspect of what's going on, this is a Malaysian flight, nothing to do with the United States, nothing to do with
the United States. Absolutely nothing to do with the United States.
And I feel the same way too. It seems to be more something that's related in the Eastern Hemisphere. Absolutely.
Well, listen, guys, I'm going to break in here. We're going to take a short break. Mike's got some dancing music for us here on halftime. And when we come back, I'm going to bring on another very nice lady, Miss Andrea Perrin, when we come back.
Yay.
209er, you are cleared for takeoff.
Roger. Huh?
LA departure frequency 123.9er.
Roger. Huh? Request vector. Over. What?
Flight 209er, clear for vector 324.
We have clearance, Clarence. Roger, Roger. What's our vector, Victor? Tower radio clearance, over. That's Clarence, over. Over. Roger. Huh?
Roger, over.
What?
Welcome back, everybody. Is everybody back?
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
No.
George, I think you were really here. Everybody, I want you all to welcome Miss Andrea Perrin, host of A World Awakening Wednesday nights on Blog Talk. Such a nice lady. Hello, Andrea.
Yay.
Hi, how are you tonight, Mike?
This is Tracy.
Yeah, well, you know.
Give her a break. She's had a long day.
Hey, Tracy, we all look the same on the radio.
Oh, hi, Trace. Where's Mike? Are we free of him tonight?
No, Mike's always. I watch you on camera, remote view. You, George, all of you, all the time. I'm there 25/8.
Oh, God. Let me make a mental note of that. No, hi, Trace. Let me talk to Tracy for a minute. George I spent the entire day with, so, George knows I'm just saying hi again for the umpteenth millionth time. But hello to Tracy, and hello to Mike, and hello to this lovely young lady that you have joining with you tonight. I'm sorry, I don't know your name yet.
My name is Auriel. How are you? I'm glad to meet you.
It's lovely to meet you too, sweetheart. I was out having dinner with my dad, and we got home a little while ago, and I hopped in as soon as I could. And I know what the subject matter is. I am amazed by what's going on with this, that there has been, virtually no discernible evidence. There has been, I don't know what to make of it. George and I have talked about this at length, and I really don't know how to wrap my mind around it, but it's beginning to look more and more suspicious, and I cannot blame anybody who comes up with any kind of conspiracy theory around this, because it does look like there's something insidious going on here. But I'll tell you, first and foremost, my heart breaks for the families who are missing their loved ones and don't know anything about where they are or if they're still with us or not. And I can't even imagine, I cannot even put myself in that scenario. So it's a shocking, stunning, painful loss for the whole world.
True, very true. So, Andrea, what do you have any thoughts on exactly if somebody's responsible for this, or?
I don't know. The last night, the last thing that was recorded from the cockpit was, I believe, good night to everybody. In other words, they were going off into their long-distance flight. They knew they were going to be at some point out of radar range, and it sounded to me like a signing off, just perfectly normal. And I really don't know what to make of it. I don't even know that there's any appropriate conjecture around it, because there are so many people involved with this. Not only, of course, everyone on that flight, but everyone whose lives have been impacted because of this. And I know there have been a whole lot of people out there. I mean, the Internet is on fire with speculation about it. And everybody's conjecture is just as valid as everybody else's conjecture when no one knows what's exactly happened here. But I'll tell you, it's hard for me to wrap my mind around the notion that in 2014, every single plane isn't being tracked, every single foot it travels in the air. I just can't believe.
Absolutely.
It is. It's amazing,
some reasoning
isn't it?
behind that.
Mhm. Yeah,
You
with
know,
all the yeah, I agree.
with all the technology that we have,
Yep.
how can something as big as a 777 go missing? How can that happen?
This isn't, the days prior to jet planes when, planes had difficulty traveling over the oceans and these kind of things. It is modern day, absolutely. It makes no sense.
Yes.
Auriel, I'm glad you joined tonight because when Tracy had mentioned that Matt was going to be out, me and him were chatting, actually during the show with you and George, and we discussed this after y'all's show, which is Tuesday nights for anybody listening. A World Awakening. Gosh, you guys are into what, episode 5, 6, 7 by now, rolling right along. But I was fascinated with this, and you go back, and I don't know when George and I had Ben Hansen on that Monday, and I kind of started the show with this. I jokingly said, and half jokingly because I was half serious, because I do believe there's something else out there. I believe the universe is just way too big for us to be the only thing that is a intelligent type being that communicates with one another, and some of the things that we've done, that so many things have happened, so many portals, wormholes, as some of our scientific paranormal or ghost people talk about. We've gone back and forth tonight on whether the plane crashed, and in 2014 it is extremely hard to believe that we haven't found some debris, that why the pilots, we didn't have something. The French airline 3 years ago that crashed in the Atlantic, they did call in. They got to about 3 minutes of audio in before they lost them, and then it took them a while to find the plane. And they may find the plane. It may have been that it went on autopilot, but so many things say that 12 minutes after they took that turn, according to radar, was the last communication that you spoke about, where he responded like everything was systems go. And then we talk about the conspiracy theories of the pilot being involved, or the 2 passengers with the stolen passports, possibly hijacking the plane and forcing the plane to go up north, as they say, up in towards India, towards Iran, towards the Middle East, through the Malaysias, or through the Himalayan mountains, that they said would be so hard to navigate through. And then you put 2 and 2 together with the pilot and his simulator that he had been practicing on. Was he practicing for this, and was he in on it with this? And that seems so far-fetched to believe, but we still don't have the plane. So at what point do some of the top minds in the world begin to turn around and say, could there have been a portal, a wormhole or something like that have opened up? And this is something that has happened in the past, but this just happened to be the perfect storm, and they're gone forever. We'll never find the plane, and there won't be an answer to this. And it has to do with these portals or something that may be UFO or alien related.
Yeah, the Examiner, I think, blew that up.
That's
we'll
just
go with
as valid as any other thing. Yep, I really agree with you. I think that is just as valid a point as virtually anything else that anyone else has suggested, because we live in a multidimensional universe, and we understand about 1% of it. I mean, we have no clue what's going on out there. We're just now getting an inkling of it. And so we cannot afford in our ignorance to simply dismiss any conceivable concept in terms of the likelihood that this was either sucked into it. The fact is that, gosh, I don't know how much I should say about this or not, but, this has
nobody's listening.
Oh, okay, good. In that case, I'll just
nobody's listening.
There have been planes that have disappeared before, and that have been laid back down in a place that they did not disappear from, and they were minus their crews. Now, I know from what I consider to be a highly reputable source that the opening scenes of Close Encounters of the Third Kind were actually truth being told, and letting that notion permeate the human mind. And for the last 40 years, there has been one indication after another, declaring the presence of extraterrestrials on this planet, as though they're priming the pump because they don't think that we can handle the truth. But the truth, in actuality, is what will set us free in terms of race consciousness, in terms of coming to grips with our own mortality and our position in the universe. We are not alone. We've never been alone. This is an occupied planet. It has been for millennia, and anything is possible. So when I suggest to you that your notion of a wormhole opening up and sucking this, massive airliner out into the cosmos, that's just as valid as anybody else's speculation on this point. It is.
It is.
Yeah, and
totally.
Since they haven't found it, and Auriel, I'll let you comment, but I always like to go into, I started out getting into the paranormal field looking or hunting for ghosts, as people would say. And it didn't take me long to turn around and say, well, let's stop and think about it just from the opposite end of this. If I were the ghost, how would I want to be responding? Not that I would know, but, you just kind of look at it that way. From another standpoint of an intelligent being that is an alien to the planet Earth, that one of these portholes or something, as we've seen with Star Trek, beam me up, for lack of better terms, something like this happened. And the one time something like this happened, they wound up with the plane, and they said, oh, my gosh, that's not our guys. What do we do now? We can't send them back.
Yeah.
Maybe we have one of those scenarios. Auriel, what do you think?
Well, not specifically for this thing, but I do believe that this is a multidimensional world, and we are multidimensional beings, and we, as human beings, we haven't got a clue as to how powerful we really are. And this Earth is like a cesspool full of everything. It's all things, because this is like a free world. This is a free will planet. Everybody's interested. What's free will? We want to join in, And I've met all kinds of different kinds of physical beings on this planet. I can't believe it. And I can tell you all about them. They're really cool. You guys talk about Yeti. Oh my God. I was camping and I heard 3 of them yelling at each other, and good God, they're loud. But, it's we haven't even tapped into, how expansive we are here on planet Earth. And all of the beings that are here, there are so many different kinds of beings. And you may think, oh, wow, yeah, that person is just like a beautiful human. Is it really a human? You don't know. You guys are ghost hunters, and you're ghost investigators and paranormal investigators and stuff like that, and you're wondering about government conspiracies. Well, government's in on some of it, but, there is more to this planet than what we really see, and maybe it wasn't a wormhole. Maybe it was like a time rift. Maybe it was something like that. But how wondrous is that, to discover something like that?
Now, as far as the whole wormhole from the scientific perspective of, quantum physics and looking at the wormhole.
Yes, I know what you're talking about, yeah.
Yeah, there's 3 things that could have happened. It could have ended up in another universe, in another time, or the wormhole could have collapsed and just destroyed everything within it. So, I mean, chances are, if it happened that way, there'll be no way to ever find out.
Will there be in the future? But, okay, wait a second. Would there be a way to find out, even if they time traveled, even if they went to another universe? Probably not. We probably will never hear from them again. Yeah. So, we know that wormholes collapse, and that maybe theirs didn't.
Yep, well, absolutely. And there's 2 different possibilities, like we said, time travel, and then there's displacement to another universe in itself for a different location. And then once again, when we go back to the paranormal, that's the way that I look at things. A wormhole could simply have opened up and then sound traveled through it, and that's what you're catching on your recorder. Maybe it's from another universe, and that's why things coincide. There's only slight differences, but it's the same location, same time. There's a lot of great ideas behind that for sure. One of the most bizarre one I heard was that this plane was having technical difficulties, and that a UFO basically spotted this, took the plane within itself, and basically after meeting each other, everybody basically come to the same conclusion, and that was that they were going to come up with a bigger plan in the future, and that plan was going to be to promote world peace. So this is more or less a kidnapping, but with a good purpose behind it. And that was the story I had heard at one point that I thought was, a little out there, but, when you're exploring all possibilities, anything is truly possible.
But don't you think that it would be more comfortable for the people who have actually lost their loved ones? Don't you think that it would be more comforting for them to at least have some, I hate the word closure, it's so grossly overused, but in this particular situation, it applies. And I think that if I were the loved one of someone lost on that plane, I'd rather know that they were on the bottom of the Indian Ocean than sucked up into a wormhole and catapulted to the other side of the universe and never know what their experiences are or if they survive to that.
Oh, that's got to be the worst thing for them is just, these questions upon questions that just keep coming out that, CNN's bringing up and just, over and over again and all these different ideas. Like you said, it's got to be horrible for those families to have that answer.
Terrible. It's terrible. And the most disturbing report, and I've been watching this like a hawk, and the most disturbing report that I heard about this came about 3 or 4 days into it. George will correct me if I'm wrong, but they said that there was some indication that plane had made some very odd fluctuations in its elevation and that it had gone to 45,000 feet. And the background on that is with the 777 that if you go up to 45,000 feet, you only have 10 to 15 minutes of oxygen to breathe before you suffocate at that altitude. And according to CNN, it went up to 45,000 feet, stayed there for an extended period of time, and then dropped very low to less than 20,000 feet. If that is the case, that sounds malignant and malicious, and it sounds like a pilot who decided to deliberately kill everyone on the plane, including the co-pilot. The only limitless oxygen in a 777 is in the pilot's cabin, and everybody else is on their own after 10 or 15 minutes. And this is the big thing, after that report aired on CNN, and I am a wicked news junkie. I watch everything news, and I never saw it again. I never heard about it again. I Googled it. I couldn't find anything about the report. It was as if somebody stepped in and shut them down on that issue, on terms of the altitude, and I have not heard anything more about it. And if anybody else has, please let me know.
The only thing I've heard was an attempt to discredit it by saying that the devices that they were using to determine the altitude of the plane, the radar, was at such a distance that there could have been a very large percentage of error. And then that's absolutely, I'm trying to find that same kind of information like you said, and it's hard to find that kind of stuff now. There were a lot of things that came out in the beginning that really put the questions out there, and then now have absolutely disappeared.
Yeah,
I think that
you're absolutely correct. Go ahead, George.
I was going to say, Tracy, I think the biggest signal or the best indicator out of it all is when the one Secret Service guy shot the rest of the Secret Service guys, opened up the weapons array, and Gary Oldman and his Russian counterparts went in there, and then they kidnapped, at that point in time, the family of Harrison Ford, and then Vice President Glenn Close was to try and get them back into the States, and they went up to some Pakistani country. Oh, I'm sorry. I'm reciting Air Force One. I'm sorry. I got lost.
Yeah, there you go.
George needs spanking.
Oh, boy.
Lost my concentration. I'm sorry.
Oh, that's too much.
But see, I think you guys are onto something. And Dan, when you're talking about the misreading of the radar, once those transponders are turned off, the transponders are what sends out and receives altitude data, so on and so forth. So once those are turned off, aircraft control towers can't really tell what their altitude is. So I find that to be one.
Those have to be manually turned off. Those do not go off on their own. Those have to be manually turned off. And there are 9 different indicators on a 777 that continue to ping out information even if the transponder is turned off. Why hasn't anyone picked up anything from that airplane?
Because nobody was listening.
Yeah, last report that I got on CNN just tonight before the show was a military radar is now saying that they picked up that plane about 90 minutes after that the supposed turn in last communication.
Okay. Yeah, and who's the country that said that they picked up something and then they didn't disclose it because nobody asked them? Really? Nobody asked them?
Yeah, that was Malaysia.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, somebody needs to be slapped upside the head. I can't even. The stuff that's coming in around this is just it's insidious. There's something going on here that we are. They're putting out false information, misinformation, too much information, too little information. We're just being bombarded and misdirected and redirected over and over and over again. And I flipped through. I'm going from HLN to CNN to MSNBC to, I mean, everywhere I'm going, I'm jumping. I'm looking around over these last couple of weeks. And all I really see are a lot of media giants trying to get their ratings up because of this disaster, and it's disgusting.
All right, you're absolutely right. It's disaster porn. And one of the things maybe you missed, I said earlier in the show, Andrea, with this disaster porn, that the Asian people tend to, and what I get, and this is I'm sure not across the board, that it's make sure we haven't made a mistake before we're honest about information first, that everything, just like the over in Japan with the tsunami, with the nuclear plant, it was days before we got honest answers about that, and that was jeopardizing the world at that point, not just them locally. This was something that if they needed help,
it's still
again, remember that they're, like I said, they're Asian, and so Asians do that. They want to save face.
Right, right. And at this point, saving face was not the thing to do. And I would like to say they need to evolve as a people past that when there's a tragedy like this.
You can't say that. You can't make a blanket generalization about Asian people when Chernobyl was the worst nuclear disaster prior to Fukushima, and the Russians didn't tell anybody about it. Nobody. And it was the Swedes that said, we have radiation showing up in our cow milk. Something's going on. And that's what happened. And I know a woman personally who was in Kiev at the time that Chernobyl exploded. And when it did, there was a massive, I have an eyewitness account of Chernobyl from a friend of mine who has emigrated to the United States and works with my sister as a cake decorator. And everybody in her family is dead from cancer. And the only reason that she and her son are still alive is because when that massive explosion occurred and this huge black cloud came flying up over their city, she thought there was a bad storm coming, and she tucked inside into a doorway until the radiation passed. I'm not saying she doesn't have issues and health issues, and so does her son, but everybody else in her family is dead, and everyone was exposed. And the Russians aren't Asian. So,
I understand your point, Andrea. I'm not quite sure how that has anything to do with not saying they're similar in the way they cover this up. I'm not saying that the Russians or anybody else on the planet is not guilty of cover-ups themselves, but historically the Asian people are known for this.
Yeah, it's human nature to do this. It's human nature to behave badly when we don't understand what's going on, or they think
and that was my point. If I wish that maybe it would evolve past that and start saying there's human lives on the line here versus who's actually going to take the blame on this, which maybe humans will never be able to do that. I mean, maybe I'm the last person that should call something like that out, but to me, if you have information that can help human lives, I think you put yourself behind that and you give the information up.
Yeah, you don't just let your own people perish because it's not politically expedient to divulge what's going on. And as for Fukushima, shame on them, shame on us, shame on everybody on this planet for not dealing with what's going on in Fukushima.
Oh,
It's like, do they not understand that all the oceans of the world are interconnected? Just because they have different names doesn't mean anything. When 30 million gallons of cesium is pouring into the Pacific every single day, and they don't know how to stop it, and to keep this under wraps. Yeah, like everybody forgot. Yeah, it's the same thing with the oil spill in the Gulf. I mean, think about that. But you know what? That could be fixed. I know a marine biologist who said it will take 25 to 40 years, but the microbes will eat all that oil that's sitting in the bottom of the Gulf of Mexico. That's not the case with what's going on in Fukushima, where there is radioactive debris that's washing up on the coast of Hawaii and that's washing up on the coast of Alaska and California. Seattle, Washington's had their fair share. It's coming in droves. There is a debris field out in the Pacific right now. You don't see any pictures of it. It's as big as Texas.
You won't
It's
catch
as
me
big
eating
as the
fish.
state of Texas, and it's radioactive, and it's coming our way. Why isn't that the lead story on the news every single day?
It doesn't sell commercials.
Oh,
No, it doesn't.
Yeah, it's a bummer. Well, we could be talking about, whose latest music video was offensive. I'm losing faith very quickly in the powers that be in terms of the media and keeping us properly informed. Because if we don't have them, who do we have?
Well, and I've said that a long time, and this is just my personal opinion. And Audrey, you and me have just touched briefly on it. I know I've had several discussions with George, and I'm getting to know Tracy. That basically I put a big X over Fox and CNBC because those two are on opposite sides of the seesaw, up and down. That they go to extremes, and I don't consider them media or newsworthy. They're opinion-based cable networks. That's simply opinion, not real news. CNN gives you a taste of real news, but they're going to oversaturate you with what they think you will continue to watch because they want you to stay tuned for their commercial break. That PBS is probably the only fair and unbiased news source that I can find, and they tend to give you a very boring, straight factual news broadcast on the PBS News area every evening, which I happen to DVR. I don't watch it all the time. I probably should. It's not as entertaining as CNN or ESPN with my sports, but that is the one place that you can go to that they're normally not selling an opinion based on their advertisers, because the people that pay for that news is us.
Yes.
Right.
Well, just look at how much we're discussing it right now. This is a hot topic, and it's what people want for sure. They want speculation.
It's what they want to be entertained. They don't want the truth, because the truth, they might have to do something if they hear the truth, or it can be boring, because I hear a lot of complaining about, government, blah, blah, blah. Hey, if you're going to complain about it, use all that energy up about it. Why don't you go do something about it? Do people want to do anything about it? Probably not.
Yeah.
But they're giving us what we want to hear. And if we want more information, if we want to know more stuff, we need to go and find it.
And Auriel, you're correct, but it's almost a little bit different than that. And the metaphor example I would use here, if in Texas I owned the liquor and beer distributors here, and I pushed beer out the door and was a multi-millionaire, billionaire because of it, and somebody came up and actually had factual proof that alcohol was bad for you, that it was not good, that it was causing people to have cancer in certain situations like this, and went on a small news channel to present this information that began to spread like wildfire. The one that I pay so much to do advertising with, that loves me because I contribute millions to them in advertising dollars, simply gets a story from us and then begins to push this to the consumer, saying that the report is not factual, it's not accurate. So it's not so much giving you entertainment. Sometimes they actually tell you what a large corporation wants you to believe. And that's where we're at in 2014.
Yes, they do. They do. But if you want the truth, you need to go find it.
Sometimes that's not easily done.
No, it's not easily done. But how much do you want it? How much do you want to know?
that's called a government overthrow, and that's never going to happen in that circumstance. Because that's again, we are governed more than most other countries are concerned, and it's something that we'll never get a chance. You know, of all the other different things we're speculating on here, the one thing we've talked about just in brief aspects is alien life. But I'm sitting there going, but I answered my own question as I was sitting here. If they can make a plane disappear, why can't they make Justin Bieber disappear? But then I realized they don't want him either.
No, nobody wants him. Oh, and by the way, you guys can keep Celine Dion.
Yeah, he's persona non grata throughout the universe, honey. It's not just our planet.
But would it not absolutely amazing with all the drama going on with the news and everybody speculating that the aliens dropped this plane right in the middle of Central Park, New York, with a note that says, "Dear Earthlings, boy, are you stupid, sign the aliens."
But everybody would be watching their TVs and probably miss it, you know, looking
They
for
probably
other
would.
speculation.
To be watching an old episode of Who's the Boss. They don't know. They're clueless. The vast majority of the population in this country is clueless. And that's why George and I are doing what we're doing on Tuesday nights. It's kind of a slap across the face. Wake up. You know, it's time to wake up. And not just in this country, worldwide. Exactly. It is time for people to start coming to terms with their mortality, with their inherent immortality, and with living in a multidimensional universe. When we start to change minds about all reached a point of clarity far superior to where we are now, because right now we're just a bunch of muddling amoebas, and we haven't seemed to evolve all that much as far as I'm concerned. You know, I still consider most of humanity to be barbaric in nature. You know, we haven't, George and I were watching Cosmos the other night, which was fantastic. It's so great. And when they did, he's like, "You've got to watch this. This you have to see. You have to see this." And when they did the whole history of the entire universe and crammed it into a calendar Earth year, we've been here on this planet as upright Homo sapiens for the last 15 seconds. We are babes in the woods. We don't know anything. And it's perfectly okay to say, "I don't know." But in the process of saying, "I don't know," I also want to hear, "But what if?" Use the mind God gave you. Stop zoning out because it's comfortable. You know, the TV is just another drug if it's used to the extent that you tune out anything of any significance in life.
I don't watch TV. I think TV is, I just can't watch it. I can't, it drives me crazy. I don't even like having it on.
There too. There's important
information. I know that there's good, there's good stuff there too, but still it's, being the person that I am, in order to get the information that people need, I don't like the influence of it. So I don't watch TV. And that way, when I do get information, it's information. It's just there. And I trust what it is. But what you're right in saying, Andrea, that in my clarity class, in my mediumship class, one of the first things I say in the first class is this is a multidimensional world, and you are a multidimensional person. And it always blows people away. And some people will come back 6 months later going, "You know, you said that, it still drives me crazy, and I don't know what it means." But it's like so cool to hear it from someone else.
Yeah, and I understand what you're saying, and I understand your approach. But it is more than most minds can fathom. And that's why we've tried to slowly but surely, we focused our first show on fear. You know, it's the dispelling of fear that is what opens the door to consciousness. Because fear is what, you know, and George, I agree with him completely. He said that fear is the antithesis of love, not hatred. That hatred is born of fear. And I think that's a very profound and significant statement. And I've stolen it and use it as my own now.
Well, it's the truth. It's the truth. And when people start to overcome their fears and start being in a place of love, then there is so much more out there, and they find that, things slip away and new things come, and it's about wisdom, and it's about that wisdom just coming to you. It has nothing to do with gain. It's just wisdom.
I just don't understand. I don't understand why people shun reality and in the process let their minds go into what is deliberately not reality, which is, the sitcoms and the game shows and the reality shows. And, it's one thing to just zone out for a little while, but when you build your whole entire life around making sure that you're at home on a certain time at a certain night so that you don't miss your show, and you've got the DVR fired up. And I do the same thing. I've been following Resurrection. I've been following Cosmos. Thanks, George. It's the things that are important to me, the things that are value added to my consciousness is what I let in. So I think that it's important that we all start to think in terms of what are we going to allow into this computer brain that we have? Is it going to be garbage in, garbage out? Or is it going to be programmed deliberately with fruitful, thoughtful, poignant information that has some bearing on our existence?
I think there's some people that are ready for it, and I think some people are just not ready for it. And who are we to judge them except to be the best examples that we can be?
Yes, and we have to set a good example. And I'm not saying, that we're in any way superior to anyone else, because I don't believe that. I think we're all in this boat together. But the fact of the matter is our boat's sinking, and somebody needs to do something about it. And I can't just stand here and say somebody needs to do something about it. I need to do something about it. Because why am I here otherwise? What purpose do I serve on this planet? Just to take up space? Just to breathe the air? I don't think so.
No, it's to get to the next level of Candy Crush. That's what it is.
You are so lucky I'm not in compost right now, because you would have a whelp.
No, but it's just that. It's like, if you're in fear, then you can't raise up. But once you release your fears, you start releasing your fears, you see things so much more differently. And it's okay for people to be who they are, because it doesn't really matter anyway, because it's your journey. It's not your journey and their journey. It's your journey. And so you make the journey the best that you can.
Very well stated.
Well, let's stay on the interdimensional thing here. Earlier in the week, I was looking up the Bermuda Triangle, because that's what I was hoping, we would get into.
Yay!
But I read a couple of articles where there is actually 10 of these so-called triangles throughout the world, and they're all on the same. Okay, and they're all on the same latitude lines.
Mm-hmm.
But it's curious that there is one right off the west coast of Australia, and if you take a pin and you go and you draw the aircraft's flight line, it goes straight through the middle of that
Isn't
triangle.
That interesting?
I'm just throwing that out there. I'm not saying that that's it, but
don't you think the pertinent question really is, what made that plane turn around? It was on its proper trajectory. It was heading towards its destination, and it did an abrupt about-face and started flying in the opposite direction. What prompted that? That's your answer.
I agree with Andre on that. I have to agree. That's what I've been saying the whole time is that if they're accurate, that the communication was 12 minutes after the left turn, which most radar picked the plane up, that the first thought to me was they had some type of an emergency on a plane, and that the pilot, maybe an electrical problem that caused the transponder not to work in the chaos and confusion. Maybe it was turned off accidentally. I mean, there's all kinds of speculation there. But you would think that and a lot of pilots have agreed, that you would head back towards land at that point, so he made the proper move in the plane, possibly then put it on autopilot to turn around and try to make repairs. Maybe there was smoke. He couldn't breathe. They couldn't see. And at some point, they all went under, never to come back. And the plane basically, just like Payne Stewart, the golfer, on the plane in the United States, if anybody remembers, where basically they found out about that plane and followed it till it crashed. That the same thing happened, and this plane crashed in the ocean. But why did we have communication that was normal 12 minutes after the turn? That's the magic mystery right there.
Yes, it is.
There could have been the fire to begin with, and then the loss of communication and transponder and whatnot. If it was electrically related, they'd be pulling boards out of the circuitry that's in there. So you're going to, start with non-essential boards and pull those out that aren't going to affect the way that the aircraft flies. My big thing about that is, aren't you going to radio before you do that and say, this is what's happening, there's some sort of an emergency? The one thing I had brought up before was a Canadian who had, made it newsworthy talking about the possibility of that having happened. And he said, in his eyes as a pilot, that the very first thing you try to do is control the plane, and so that you're not thinking about the communication. But then if you look at any of the past things that have happened, like Tracy said earlier, those pilots have always communicated, back to the tower or whatever and said what's happened prior to anything. Right. Now, could that have been the first thing that went out, was communications with the circuitry, and then they pulled the rest afterwards? Or, I'm not sure how they are designed exactly, the 777.
I agree with you on that, Dan, and the thing that comes to mind after we're talking about that is that the only scenario that makes sense to me in that scenario is that the Malaysian people have lied about the communication. That if the communication was before the turn, that they said no, just to make sure that they didn't look bad. It was after, at this time, and it's showing that the plane was already turned. If we come to find out later on, which we may never find out, if they do finally eventually find some of the wreckage and it did crash into the ocean, that it was on autopilot or whatever the scenario may be, that possibly one small lie right there changes everything. And if it was somebody that was doing a CYA by saying, no, we had communication at this point, what was it? It was this. Do you have it on record? Maybe they do, maybe they don't know. We didn't think there was any problem. It was right before they left at this time. Well, radar shows this was 12 minutes after the turn. Oh, wow, okay. Possibly whenever they made this statement, maybe they didn't realize, oh, great, that's not good. It shows 12 minutes after the turn. Now they think that there was some kind of cohorts going on, that the pilots went on it, they had been hijacked or something along these lines instead of, possibly an electrical fire, something wrong with the plane, mechanical failure, that the pilot did not have time, neither one of them, and they turned back towards land, and at some point all perished in the flight, and it simply flew on autopilot, just like I said with the Payne Stewart plane, until it crashed into the ocean, and that was the end of it.
And electronics, they can do strange things without even being on fire, let alone being on fire. So as far as the change in direction of the plane after that one turn that's been reported by some, there is a report that there were 3 other slight shifts in direction that were made, not enough to totally change course, but that seemed like they wouldn't have happened if it was an autopilot type thing. But once again, that could have been some sort of, electrical problem that could have happened.
We're all missing one key element that's only been addressed one time. I think it was on CNN, and I brought this up to Mike, that everybody seems to be missing this particular factor to it. Unless something happened with such a rapidity, to such a point that nobody could react quick enough. You look at all the different phone calls that were made during 9/11 when they found out that their plane was being hijacked, and they were text messaging and phone calling their loved ones. There was not one message sent by one single passenger flight.
True.
Not one.
Absolutely, yeah. I didn't think about it that way, but absolutely, yeah. So, without totally incapacitating them. But then once again, it doesn't explain the changes in the directions and whatnot and all that kind of thing if they're incapacitated. So then once again, bringing it back to the theory of, a possible hijacking type scenario.
And look at what happened to Apollo 13. That was a tiny, tiny little glitch. It was a coil that malfunctioned. and it jeopardized the entire mission and ended the moon mission, and those men barely made it back alive to this planet. And, that was a minor, tiny little thing that happened 2 years before that flight took off.
Oh, look at the Challenger, and they knew about a piece having fallen off prior in a prior mission, and they still let that happen too. There's a lot of mistakes that are made for sure.
Yeah, and that was the Challenger. I mean, NASA did finally own that, and they, said that it was a rush to judgment to send that thing up. I think it was 23 degrees that day at Cape Canaveral, and they didn't think that the O-rings would necessarily hold. And the scientists who built that, who put that thing together, were the ones that put out the warning ahead of time not to put it up, but it had already been delayed several times, and it was a matter of the bottom line.
They asked them how
they
would
hated
know
their lives.
Because they've never flown in those conditions. And
Right.
they took a piece and threw it in a glass of cold water and showed how brittle it got. And they still, ignored the scenario that was about to happen.
Yeah, well, whoever made the call for the Challenger to go up has all of those lives on their conscience.
And exactly now, who is this person that could have the same kind of situation here? And are they high enough that they're able to pull off something like this? Does somebody know something that could have been with this plane prior to having even taken off?
Mm-hmm.
Well, there's a possibility that before the flight, even every single one of the passengers were offered $1 million to start a new life and disappear.
I still want my $1 million. I'll take it.
Yeah, but if the deal was with that, George, that you could never see anybody in your family again, you could never be with your loved ones again, I wouldn't take that, Gio.
Yeah, but you're not.
Go ahead, George.
I'd say, but you're not Malaysian.
Oh.
Anybody ever offers me that deal and I disappear and I'm still alive while you guys are doing the show, if a Domino's pizza delivery for everybody on the show shows up simultaneously during the show, I'm okay.
Well, listen, guys, we're getting low on time here, so let me start with Auriel. Auriel, if you can tell us what's coming up on your Gang of Girls show and where they can find it.
Yeah, a Gang of Girls Radio on WHVR Digital Broadcasting, WHVRdigital.com. Tomorrow night, 8 o'clock, we're interviewing Sophia, the Ghost Host. It's my Psychic Kids show, and it'll be really fun because we're going to talk about how to connect with spirit guides and who are they? Because you never know who your spirit guides are. So, and you can go to agangofgirls.com and check out all the stuff. If you want to know about Auriel Grace, there's all kinds of stuff there, and you can even contact me.
Hey, Dan, if someone wanted to get a hold of you, what would be the best way to get a hold of you?
If you wanted to get a hold of me, probably the best way would be to check out our Facebook from Unearthed Paranormal Investigations or Twitter at Unearthed Para. We also have an email, unearthedparanormal@gmail.com. We don't have much coming up on the next little bit, but we are looking at doing a lot of historical locations in the area, as well as doing a little bit of volunteer work to try to help out the community with some of the historical locations. And the little side project, I'm doing a little bit of testing with some of the paranormal equipment that people use, and I'm hoping to get some videos up on YouTube, which of course I'll have links to through Facebook and Twitter.
Cool. George?
I don't know. I'm making this up as I go. Oh, where you can reach me at? You can reach me at the Flagler County Detention Center.
There's a payphone in the hallway.
Yes.
Bring a shit.
Please accept the charges when I call. I'll let Mike and Andrea do the promos for the next 2 nights.
Cool. Tomorrow, not tomorrow.
Actually, George and I are going to talk about a location I went to. I haven't investigated in quite some time with Dwayne Favors And Mike Johns, Dwayne's going to be joining us, possibly Mike, with the owner of Haunted Hill House, the old bordello that is across the street from the Baker Hotel in Mineral Wells, Texas, that many of you may have seen Ghost Adventures in the investigation on Crazy Town, Texas, there, and what we discovered at the location, and what any info if you're coming to Texas and want to go down to that house and book a weekend to investigate. So join us tomorrow, Monday night, Primetime Paranormal.
Fantastic. Cool. What you guys got going on?
Is it my turn?
Yeah, go ahead, Andrea.
Okay. A World Awakening, Tuesday nights, 9 o'clock, Blog Talk Radio. I'll be in Tennessee. I will be in Tennessee Friday at the University in Memphis. I will be with George in Gettysburg the second week in April. Then we go to the Star Work Symposium together in Chicago. And then the big shindig is in July, the Ocean State Paracon with Ken DaCosta and Rise Up Paranormal as the sponsors. It's going to be an active few months.
Yeah, this coming Tuesday, A World Awakening is on an earlier time frame from 6 p.m. to 8 p.m., and the show title is Just Ask Andrea with special guest John Zaffis.
Oh, yay.
You can ask us anything. I can't speak for John because God knows anything could come out of his mouth. But I will answer any question that is asked of me.
That's right.
Well, I want to thank everybody for joining us. Mike, I really do appreciate you coming on and helping me out tonight. I couldn't have done it without you. All right, guys. You guys all have a very good evening, and thank you very much for joining.
Thank you. Have a good night.
Good morning, everybody.
Bye-bye.